Howdy and welcome to episode 4 of the 240SX2JZ swap. In this episode we're not doing a whole lot to the engine, but we will be taking off the oil pan and giving it a good clean, as well as taking off the serpentine belt and some of the pulleys to be replaced so that we can gain access to the timing belt, which we will be replacing in a later video. So there isn't a whole lot going on, but what we're going to get started doing is lifting the engine up so that we can drain the oil out, and then we can start taking off the oil pan. So let's get started. Alright, so what I'm going to do right now that the oil is drained, is I'm going to lower the engine right back down so that it's just resting on the oil pan there. And then I'm going to go around and undo all the 10mm screws that are all around the bottom of the oil pan. And then I'm just going to lift the engine back up and the oil pan should just kind of drop loose. Alright, so now I'm going to lift the engine back up now that all the bolts are off, and I'm going to see if I can drop the oil pan loose. Alright, so I just went around with a mallet and a flathead, and I just kind of kept pounding in the seam between the gasket, between the block and the oil pan, and you can kind of see that it is loose. It kind of sounds hollow actually. So I'm just going to keep kind of going around, and hopefully it just pops off in a second here. Go over here. Is an oil pan and a lot of oil. Alright, so this is your oil pan. It's still going to have a little bit of oil in it, so you can dump that out. It looks pretty not new. There is a little bit of sludge down here, so that's why we took it off the car. We're just going to clean it out. Alright, so to clean out our oil pan, first you're going to want to take the old gasket off, so I'm going to use a razor blade to do that. And then I'm just going to use a bunch of paper towels to get the sludge and all the old oil out of the actual oil pan. So I'm going to do that right now. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take our gasket maker and we're going to go around the oil pan and make our seal to the block. Use a lot here and go on the inside of each of the holes. Don't go on the outside. So I am going to do that now. Alright, so now we're going to let it sit for about 10 minutes until it kind of gets a little tacky, so when we put it up against the block, it'll stick a little bit better than it being completely kind of runny right now. So we're just going to let that sit, and then we will go attach it to the block. There are studs on either side where the oil pan goes, so you're just going to fit those on, and then you can screw it in with the bolts that go onto those specific studs. So we're going to get in position here. Alright, so there we go. It's on the studs, and I'm just going to screw the studs on here. The bolts onto the studs. And now we're just gonna go around and we're gonna put all the screws in. Alrighty, so right here we have our serpentine belt system with our water pump, power steering pump, AC, harmonic balancer, and our alternator pulley. The system I have here is that I have ratchet straps kind of locking down the power steering pump pulley here, and what we're going to do is we're going to try to get that bolt loose. We're going to try to get our water pump bolts loose. This harmonic balancer crank pulley bolt is already loose. It took me about 2 hours to do because this is a very torque down bolt, and we're also going to try to get our alternator pulley bolt loose with the belt on to make things easier, and then we're going to take the belt off after all those pulleys are loose. Alright, so now that all those bolts are loose, we're going to start to take off the serpentine belt itself. To do that, you're going to take a 14mm wrench and you're going to put it on the tensioner here. You're going to attach a breaker bar to it and you're going to rotate it clockwise, and if you do that, you'll see that it moves the tensioner so that the belt is now loose. And at that point, you can just slip it off and it all comes off. At this point, we can remove our pulleys. Oh, that's 2 parts. At this point, you can check to make sure that everything kind of spins freely. It should, without everything attached. And to take off our harmonic balancer, you're going to need a pulley puller kit, which I don't have at the moment. It's coming in the mail in a few days, so at that point I'll take this off. We're leaving AC because we're going to try to retain it on this swap. But other than that, we're replacing the alternator pulley, the water pump, the entire thing, and the pulley, and the power steering pump pulley as well. And at this point, you can go ahead and remove this upper shroud, and then you can also remove the tensioner. So we'll do that right now. Alrighty, so to keep on removing things, the next step would be to get the harmonic balancer out of the way and then take off this lower shroud, which I cannot do because I don't have that pulley puller. So that will be the end of this episode, and hopefully in the next one we can take this off and start getting the new timing belt installed and the new tensioner and replacing the VVTi gear and all that good stuff. So that will happen in the next episode. But thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you in the next one.